Hi, welcome to my channel. So if you haven't been here before, I'm a mum of two, a little boy called Jet, who is 2, and a little girl called Nova, who is 7 months. And since Nova turned 6 months and started eating, we've changed around a lot of stuff with her routine. So I've been filming a few videos about those changes. So I've already filmed a video about her weaning, and I'm also putting together a little diary of a week of her food for my blog, which is linked below if you want to check it out. With both children, I basically had the mentality that until they were 6 months, I was just gonna let them be, follow their lead with feeding and sleeping, and just kind of semi get into a routine. Both of them I kind of loosely followed the 3-hour mentality of feeding and sleeping and having awake time, but just loosely to give me some kind of structure. But really, until they were 6 months, I kind of let them lead the way. And then both times, as soon as they turned 6 months and you know that they're eating food and they're getting sustenance, what's the hard word? You know that they're getting that sustenance from other places as well as just you feeding them. That both times when I've then got a bit stricter. So today's video is a bit of a mix of a few things, and I didn't really know how to approach it or what to talk about, what people find helpful and interesting, whatever. So on Instagram, I just asked people to ask me some questions, so I'm just going to answer those. So basically, when Nova turned 6 months, we moved her out of our bedroom. The camera wonky? Can't quite tell. Anyway, when Nova turned 6 months, we moved her out of our bedroom and into Jet's bedroom, and I stopped breastfeeding her in the night. So I'm talking about all that. I felt like we'd got to the point in terms of her sleeping in our room that exactly the same thing happened with Jet, whereas I felt like me and Nova were starting to wake each other up. Early in the morning, she'd kind of do a bit of snuffling and chatting, and then she'd drift back off, but she would have woken me by then, and then I'd find it hard to fall back asleep and those kind of things. Her cry is really dramatic. It's always been like this. I don't know what she's on. Jet was nothing like this, but her cry is just 0 to 100 straight away. I remember when she was tiny and she did it the first time, and I thought she was being murdered or had been like stung by a bee or something. It just always sounds like something's happened like really suddenly and really dramatically. In the night, to have a child sleeping next to you and them to cry out like that suddenly, it's horrible. And it just like pulls you out of your sleep, and it's just such an abrupt way to be woken up. And so I'd kind of had enough of 6 months of that. So also I thought if she's in another room, her cry won't feel quite so dramatic. Because also I think 6 months in, I knew that she is fine. It's not that it's a really desperate cry, it's just that she has no volume control apparently. And then breastfeeding, I've exclusively breastfed till 6 months, and I just want my body back and I want a bit of freedom back, and I want to be able to go out and not have to be pumping. I have been away from her and she's had bottles of express breast milk, but I wanted to start swapping to formula, and then when I'm out not then needing to pump to keep my supply going, I'm ready for it to be the end. I thought, well, I'll start off with stopping the night feeds and then we'll work out from there. A lot of the questions were just the same thing of, how did you do night feed weaning? How did you start night feed weaning? What are your top tips to achieve this miracle? I like that one. How did you do the night feed weaning? So until Nova moved, she would have her bedtime. So all of this was breastfeeding. She'd have her bedtime feed, which is about 6:30. Then a dream feed, which was whenever we went to bed. So anywhere between 10 and midnight. Then she'd wake definitely at least once, at least at like 4, but usually 1 or 2, then 4 or 5, then the morning at like 6:30, 7. So basically she was still definitely doing at least 1, if not 2 nighttime wake up feeds. We did it all in one. When we moved her, that's when we started the night feed weaning. So first night she was in with Jet, and I was obviously really paranoid about them waking each other up. So the moment she cried, I'd run straight through. I just decided to go cold turkey. I was like, if I end up giving in and breastfeeding her, and I feel like at some point, we've got to just start. And so tonight is the night we're gonna start. I would say try and pick a time. I know this is very easy to say, but try and pick a time where maybe the next day and the next few days you don't have loads on, so if you're exhausted, that doesn't add an extra stress to you. And again, with your partner, if you're both around, maybe a time when you are both gonna roughly be around the next day, or maybe like over a weekend or something, I don't know, just so that in the night, if you're up a lot, you can be like, it's fine, and tomorrow we can chill out, tomorrow we can chill out. So first time I went through, no, sorry, I'm lying. Henry did all this. Henry did everything that first night because I didn't know how much effect she'd have, like smelling me and expecting me to be feeding her. So Henry did all this. We went to bed with a bottle of boiled water that was then like, it was still quite hot actually, because then we thought by the time it got to the middle of the night it'd be like warm water. So Henry went through, just picked her up, gave her some of the warm water. He said she kind of necked quite a bit of it, then just held her, gave her a little pat just so she was comforted and really calm, and put her down once she was calm again, and she went back to sleep. So then he came back through, and then that basically happened on and off throughout the night, like quite often. So he'd go back in, either just try and comfort her and then put her down, or give her a bit of water, then put her down. So that was probably more than how many feeds she was doing when she slept in with us. Sorry, I feel like it's confusing because I'm kind of talking about weaning Nova and moving them in together. So with a lot of the training we've done with our babies, we've never done harsh training, but in terms of when you do want to kind of shift a routine, I have the mentality that I did hear from someone at some point in my life, that with all babies, you can approach everything with a 3-day plan, and that basically all routines can be broken and changed in 3 days. You've just got to commit to those 3 days. And obviously in each of those 1 days, that can feel like forever, but you've got to know that you're going to give it everything for those 3 days. So I knew that with Nova's night feed weaning, we needed to give it the 3 nights. We also then had just moved her in with her brother. So we were probably adding to our own stress, but I actually think it worked really well because it meant she was out of my room. Those first 3 nights of night feed weaning her were tough, but what they highlighted, which I could not believe, I did not think this was going to happen, is that they didn't wake each other up, which blew my mind. Like, I can't believe that. A lot of people had said, oh yeah, our children don't wake each other up, but I just thought, oh, mine will. Mine 100% will. Like, Nova's scream is so dramatic. They just completely sleep through each other. I could not believe it. That first night, Nova was up every hour or so. Jet was amazing. I think there was a couple of times where it made him stir. He still has a dummy in bed. So a couple of times where she'd maybe make him stir, Henry would just re-sort him out, put his duvet back over him, give him his dummy back, and he just went back to sleep and was completely fine. So actually I would say the sharing a bedroom went so smoothly, and I'll talk more about that in a bit. So back to night feed weaning. So first night she woke up quite a lot, but we just really stuck to our guns, and she just had water or just general comforting and a little bit of rocking, but never for too long, just like a little bit. We always made sure when we were putting her back down she was really calm and either had fallen back asleep in Henry's arms or was really calm and had found her thumb. She's a thumb sucker, so she'd maybe found her thumb, so he'd lie her back down with her thumb in her mouth. So then second night was the same but better. So she still woke a bit, but not as much. He had his little routine down of going in with his water and checking on her and doing all those kind of things, and that was fine. Again, Jet, amazing. Third night was awful. I think she's teething at the moment because she's had some crazy nappies, chewing on her fingers all the time, dribbling like crazy. Or another friend said maybe just by the third night she realised that like this was here to stay and she kicked up a fuss. I don't know. But third night should have been obviously the best night so far, and it was the worst. And she basically didn't resettle after 1 AM. It's also so frustrating. I find this with a lot of things that they go through. They'll do a really good 7 till 11 stint, then it all kicks off, but you never go to bed at 7, so you never make the most of it. Anyway, kicked off at 1 AM and then basically just didn't go back down until the morning. She would go back down for about 5 minutes, then wake again crying. Actually, that night, at one point, I did end up breastfeeding her, and it was a really interesting experiment because I breastfed her, which sent her off to sleep, put her back down, and she woke again about 20 minutes later, completely screaming. So I do wonder if that was maybe her teeth. And I think actually at one point Henry did do cowpole. And then at about 4 AM he just gave up and came through here, came to the living room with her, and she sat and played, and he just did some work because I think he was obviously just losing his mind slightly. So I did breastfeed her that one time, but it was interesting to see that actually it didn't really solve anything. It made her fall asleep, but there was something more wrong than that, because then she woke up again anyway. And that is the last time I then have breastfed her in the night. And that was maybe about 2 weeks ago. Since then, it's just got better and better and better. So we were just doing the water and like only like really little bits of water at this point. And then really, sorry, my battery died. When we first started this, I was breastfeeding her at her 6:30 feed. and the 10 o'clock feed, and then the morning. But then I think maybe 4 days in, once it was kind of going smoothly, I then swapped the 10 o'clock feed to a bottle of formula, and then I was feeding her in the morning when she woke up. And we were quite relaxed with what time that was, because I was just pleased that she was getting through the night. I wasn't being too strict with making her wait till a certain time, so that meant sometimes I was feeding her at like 5:30, and then often put her back in with Jet, and she'd fall back asleep again for another hour or so till like 6:30, 7. But then more recently she's been sleeping right through till her normal wake up time, so till about 6:30 or 7, and then she's having her first feed then. So she's now going from her 10 o'clock feed, she's going right through, no wake ups, not having to go in, just completely sleeping through until about 6 or 7, which is just amazing. And I did not think it would happen. And I think a lot is to be said for the 10 o'clock formula feed. I do feel like that's made a difference, because I feel like it's since then, I just wonder if it is filling her up more. And you see her, it's really interesting having breastfed for so long. It's interesting seeing the 7 ounces of formula go in, and you really know what she's taking in, and she just completely downs it, and yeah, lasts all night. And so I know formula, breastfeeding, all those things is all very, very personal, but for me, I would say changing to formula at the 10 o'clock feed must have helped, seems to have done wonders. And then I breastfeed her in the morning. What else have people asked? Do they go to sleep at the same time? First night, we did that divide and conquer approach. So Henry had Jet, I had Nova. So Nova's still in her snooze pod in their bedroom. So I fed her in their bedroom with the lights off and burped her, put her down in her bed. And then Henry read Jet his bedtime stories in our bedroom. Then brought him through and just put him straight down in the dark. We'd already told him Nova was there. And so then when we came through, we just said, you know, be nice and quiet, Nova's asleep. And he was fine and just went to sleep and was completely fine. And then I thought, oh, well, let's maybe start trying other approaches. Now we know that's worked. Nova often doesn't fall asleep on that evening feed, so I thought it'd be interesting to start trying to get her used to just going down awake with him. I still take her and feed her in the dark, just so it's nice and calm, while Henry reads to Jet in Jet's room. But then we bring her back through. We do a little prayer with them just before they go down. And so we bring her back through to his room, and Jet turns off the light, and then we just say a quick, like, thank you for our day, all together. And then put Nova down, put Jet down, both awake, and they go to sleep. It's amazing, and I don't feel like I can take any credit for that. I think it's just luck. I guess they do that in their naps as well. Like, I've been quite proactive with Nova, because with Jet, I was rocking him to sleep for months and months and months, and for his naps, I was rocking him in the buggy and doing all that kind of thing. And so with Nova, from quite early on, I've been quite proactive with making sure I just put her down awake when I know she's ready for sleep, putting her down awake, and then she gradually falls asleep. So maybe she's used to it because of that, I don't know. And I guess Jet has his dummies, Nova has her thumb, so they both have something that settles them. But yeah, so they both are very good at kind of self-settling and falling asleep. There's been a few nights where Nova hasn't wanted to go down. So 2 nights ago, actually, Henry was out, put them both down, as I always do, and she was really screaming. Left her for a couple of minutes, went back in, comforted her, left again, screamed, left her for a couple of minutes, did what I normally do, like came back in, comforted her, she screamed. Then I realised I could smell poo. Oh man, I'm having an absolute mare with batteries dying and other batteries not being charged. Anyway, what I was saying was she'd done a poo, which was very weird. But yeah, that was why she was screaming. But Jet was so sweet, because every time I went back in to see her and comfort her, he was awake, just happily lying there under his little dinosaur duvet with his dummies, and he'd say, oh mama, Nova's so sad, and would chat to me and show me his dummies, but was just chilled and kind of went with it. And then when I left again, I just said goodnight, and he was fine and quiet, and just really good, bless him. How have you stopped feeding her to sleep? Yeah, so that's one thing I would say. It wasn't always sending her to sleep anyway. So I was doing that kind of 6:30, 7 p.m. feed, and sometimes it would feed her to sleep, or she'd at least be super sleepy. I kind of follow her lead still, so sometimes on an evening where that has just sent her to sleep, I then do just carry her through and put her straight down. Or in an evening where it hasn't sent her to sleep, she comes through and joins in with maybe the last bit of Jet's story, and then goes down awake, and then does drift off, and I don't really know why. I do think a lot is to be said for her sucking her thumb, I don't know, and she has a You and the Sheep that I play to her. Do they both self-settle? Yeah, I guess that's what I've kind of talked about with their dummy and her sucking her thumb. How did you do the night feed weaning? My 14-month-old is having none of it. Yeah, I would say go with the kind of 3-day approach. If on the first night it's just horrific, don't let that put you off. And know that it is a bit of a journey to get there. It's not just going to happen. You've got to do what you feel comfortable with, but I think you also do have to stick to your guns a bit and know that you are the adult, they are the baby, and you do know what's best for them. Because then waking loads in the night isn't great for them, because they're not really getting that nice deep sleep. Like the night when Nova was up from 1, I just felt sad as well, because that's just not good for her. Like, she needs to be sleeping. So I think as well, sometimes parenting is so hard when you know you are doing what's best for them. They just don't like it. And I think it's easy, especially with Nova's cry. Like, honestly, I wish I could film it for you in the middle of the night, because it is so loud and so dramatic. It's really hard to not be thrown by that and just want to feed her and just do anything to keep her quiet and get her back to sleep. But I think it's just sticking to your guns and knowing that you are doing what's best for them, and that you need to do it eventually. Like, you're not going to be night feeding them when they're 17. And so, I don't know though, I would just say be strong and yeah, send your partner through if you can, so they're not smelling you, and yeah, do the water and really comfort them. Or, you know, if you need to, if you're breastfeeding them kind of 4 or 5 times in a night, if you need to start by just breastfeeding them once in the night or twice in the night, then once, then, and kind of phase out more calmly. I just went cold turkey, but I'm a bit cutthroat like that. When did you decide to start weaning? Yeah, that was basically just to do with the fact that I wanted to stop breastfeeding her in the day anyway, and so I thought I'd start with the night feed. And I'm very lazy, and she'd gone through into Jet's bedroom, and I didn't want to be going through multiple times in the night to breastfeed her in another bedroom. I want to eventually put our new baby into my son's room. How old was she when you did it? Yeah, so she was just over 6 months, like 6.5 months, and it was when I knew that she was eating and I wanted to be weaning her. Do they wake each other up in the morning really early? No, they don't, and I really thought they'd do this, because they both seem to go through quite a light sleep at around 5, and then usually if it's a good day, which is more often than not, they then both resettle till about 6:30 or 7. And so with Nova, I think that's why as well I was still doing that feed at like about 5 to get her to have those extra few hours. But just in general, I don't know, they just aren't waking each other up. It's really weird. I'm more shocked than anyone else. I really thought we'd be the family that it just didn't work for. I thought they'd wake each other up, and they just don't. Like, today was so funny. Today I heard Nova cry at 7, and she'd gone the whole night not doing her crazy scream, just kind of chatting and crying a little bit on and off. And I went through, Jet was just lying still, so I assumed he was asleep, and I went through to her, and then he just went, "Morning, mama," and he was just awake. And I don't know what he'd been doing. He'd just been really quiet and hadn't woken her. But yeah, they don't seem to wake each other up. But maybe I should say we have a rule with Jet that we've had forever, that he just knows nothing else, that when he wakes up, we go through changing his nappy so that he didn't wee through, and then putting some toys in his cot, and then he always had to be in his cot till 7. So if he woke at 6:45, he just had 15 minutes in his cot. If he woke at 6, he had an hour in his cot with his toys, and that took a little bit of training at first, but now he loves it. He sits happily and reads to himself and plays with his toys. He's still in a cot as well, but he's not in like a toddler bed yet. But yes, I don't know if that means he just wakes a bit more calmly because he kind of knows it's not fully daytime yet. I don't know. How did you do bedtime? Who goes to bed first, and do they disturb each other? Yes, I think I kind of touched on that. So first night we did bedtime very separately, made sure she was asleep and in bed, and then put him down. From then onwards we do bedtime at the same time, and it works. But I think that's one thing that is really just dependent on you. I think you kind of know your children. Like, I know Jet goes down really quietly, and even if he's not tired, he's very quiet because he has his dummies. He doesn't kind of chat and shout unless it's a particularly bad night and he needs medicine or comforting, whatever, but that's quite rare. He goes down quite quietly, and same with Nova. I knew it would probably work putting them down at the same time. How does Jet sleep if Nova wakes for her feed at night? I don't know how. I'm just counting my lucky stars, to be honest. I don't know what has happened, but he does just sleep through it, and a lot of people have said that. Do you guys ever get the kids down early and be able to stay up together? Yes. Yeah, they go to bed at 6:30 or 7 every night, and we have our evening, which is very important to me for my sanity. I couldn't have children that are up late, but that's, yeah, I just need that time in the evening. What does your feeding routine look like during the day? Okay, so during the day, so I breastfeed her in the morning, so maybe 5, but if she pushes through, maybe 7. Then she has a bit of breakfast at about 8. Then she has a mid-morning feed, which is I'm still breastfeeding her. Then she has lunch. Then she has a mid-afternoon feed, again, still breastfeeding her. Then she has dinner at about 5. Then she has her bedtime feed, then her 10 o'clock feed. My camera battery is flashing at me again, which is so annoying. This video has been ruined by blooming battery. I think that's basically everything. If I haven't covered it, I'm really sorry. Ask me some questions. Sometimes what I do is if I don't cover enough in a video, if I get any extra questions, I then do a quick little blog post just to kind of get up to speed of everything else I should have mentioned and forgot to. But yeah, I hope that was really helpful in terms of night feed weaning and bedroom sharing. Sorry if putting them in one video made it all a bit confusing. For us, it kind of all happened in one, so this is a video all in one. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for putting up with my ramblingness. Please do subscribe for lots more baby update, all this kind of thing, weaning and toddlers and everything, parenthood. Have a lovely week, lots of love.